Thank you, Gene. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me here at the meeting. It's exciting to be here. And I'll just mention that I'm not usually one to carry purses, but a wine purse is something I think I could get behind, so I might have to enter the raffle afterwards. The request for me to come here was really to talk about how you can elevate a brand to have a mission, be mission-driven, and have a personality using the press. And I think that that's really been the biggest area of focus for me at Patagonia. I sometimes describe my transition to Patagonia as lifting up a very fragile and enormous egg. And Patagonia is built on over 40 years of founder-driven, unconventional business. And so now, as the PR person, thinking both about proactive storytelling and about risk management, I often feel like I'm carrying around this fragile egg. And so I just wanted to use my time today to share a few of the ways that I think about my work. These are kind of principles. It's not rocket science. This isn't secret sauce of any way. It's really all about letting your brand be human. And I've included a bit of a political joke here. Corporations are people, literally. One of the most impactful things that I can remind reporters when I'm on the phone with them is that this is a group of people working in an office, trying their best to fulfill our mission and to do business in the best way possible every single day. So reminding ourselves constantly as PR professionals, people who are working with the media, that we're literally human beings in the world is the first step in helping your company achieve that same type of status when you're working with the press and being portrayed in the media. And let's see. The other thing I wanted to mention is that before I kind of get started, is that in a world of social media in particular, and John was just mentioning your own social media presence, we're constantly interacting with other human beings in the media. So as you're thinking about how your company is being portrayed, using that reminder, like you don't want to stand out from the crowd. A company, also is a group of human beings, and it's even more important in the realm of social media when that's consuming our lives. Gene mentioned my story. I'm a proud Minnesotan. I grew up there and went to college. We've got another Minnesotan in the back here, which is exciting too. All right. Anybody else from Minnesota? Anybody else been to Minnesota? It's a wonderful state. So if you haven't visited, if you haven't gone canoeing in the boundary waters in the northern part of the state, highly recommend it. I did spend some time as a journalist after college and also during college. That was sort of my passion. I thought that's what I was going to become. But I got involved in politics working on the 2008 Obama campaign in Florida in a bit of happenstance way. But it really changed my life. Being a grassroots organizer in Sarasota, Florida, working with the community there to grow groups of volunteers and carry out the most exciting campaign at the local level was a life-changing experience. And from there, I got the chance to come to Washington. I worked in the administration at the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of the Interior. At the Department of the Interior, I was press secretary for the department and really reconnected with my values as an environmentalist and conservation as something that I really deeply cared about. I brought my career in politics sort of to an end when I went on the re-election campaign, which was another life-changing experience working in the headquarters from a different perspective as my grassroots time in 2008. Started a small agency, realized that consulting was not for me at that time, did about a year of it, and then was lucky enough to come to Patagonia, where I've been for about 2 years. So this is our founder, Yvon Chouinard. You've probably heard of him. This is my favorite quote, and it's the quote of his that I think is most directly pertains to my work. To do good, you actually have to do something. So the biggest takeaway from this presentation is that if it's not newsworthy, it's not for PR. You can use your marketing channels, you can use your email list or paid advertisements or digital placements or whatever it might be to communicate about something that may not be newsworthy. But if you want to attract the media's attention, if it doesn't pass the immediate sniff test of doing something substantial in the world, it's not worth spending your effort. You should look for something else, no matter what your marketing director might be telling you. So I think that one of the things that Patagonia has done extremely well is define what is our reason for being. Making money doesn't count. That's not a mission statement. A mission statement is something that defines your values and gives you a purpose in the world above and beyond the products you make or the footprint that you have physically. And Again, I think this just gets back to the fact that Patagonia and every other organization in the world is a group of people. That is the definition of any type of group. And at Patagonia, our mission statement is to build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. And you'll notice that each of the thirds of our mission statement communicate a value about who we are and what we care about. And I use that mission statement constantly in working with the press to elevate stories to the type of coverage that really benefits our organization. So this is kind of simple stuff, but it's important to remind ourselves. How does a human behave? Humans know themselves and they have a point of view, we hope. They speak up for what they believe in, generally. They don't talk like robots, or PR professionals, for that matter. Humans take risks. At least when they're successful, they take risks. Humans communicate differently based on who's listening. They know their audiences, and they tailor their message depending on who they're talking to. Humans have faults and failures every single day, and they treat their friends like adults, even if they're kids. So we talk to others with respect and treat them as adults. We don't talk down. We don't dumb our messages down. So these are just basic things about how everyone in this room behaves and how human beings behave. So how do we apply that to a company? Something that is a group of humans, but most people don't think of companies or organizations in that way. So we tell the good and we also tell the bad. Your customers are part of your mission, so make sure that they feel like they're participating in your efforts. Just a few quick examples of how Patagonia has carried this principle out in recent years. The first one, that's a picture of one of our most popular rain shells, the M10. The M10 is a high-performance, water-repellent product. It contains significant chemical treatments on the outside of the product. So one thing that we've been very forthright with our customers about is that although this is the best-performing product for water repellency in the outdoors, it also comes with a significant cost. The chemicals we use do not degrade in the environment. They persist, and they're quite toxic. We also believe that performance is really important. So there's a balance there. If we are not using these particular chemicals, this jacket won't last as long. It'll have to be thrown away. Another one will have to be purchased, and that has a significant impact on the planet. So we're always talking with our customers and our audiences and the media in particular about that tension that we're feeling every day between our environmental mission and our need to make the best product. Another example is our use of plastic bags to ship our garments. We're constantly getting criticized actually on social media. People open their boxes when they order from Patagonia.com and they discover that we've wrapped their product in this plastic bag. Well, it turns out this plastic bag, although of course it's made of plastic, a petroleum-based product, actually protects the garment to an extent that eliminating them from our shipping would have a worse impact on the environment because of the damage caused to products, causing us to have to replace them and actually make more. So that's something we've also been very forthright in communicating to our customers and to the media about, and it's a way that we're able to talk about our mission and allow our customers to really live that mission with us. And the third is our use of neoprene. Neoprene is a really nasty petroleum-based substance. If you're a surfer and you have a wetsuit, you may know that, you may not know that. We've put a lot of R&D work into developing a plant-based alternative called Ulex. But when we started making wetsuits in 2008, one of the first statements we made to customers was, neoprene is the only thing we have got right now, and we think we can make wetsuits out of neoprene better than anyone else. So we're going to do it because we can do it better than anyone else. We're making the best product. But neoprene is really nasty, and so we're going to dump resources into figuring out a better way to do that. You want to elevate the discussion. Promote what caused you to act and find your differentiator. One of the things that I look for in communicating the actions that we do as a company is to look to promote not the action we took, but instead promote the what caused us to make that action. What was it that caused us to spend years developing, for instance, a migrant worker standard? We had found some human slavery in our supply chain, our tier 2 supply chain, deep in the supply chain where almost no company is looking for social and labor infractions. And we spent a few years developing a standard and implementing it so that we could be assured that there was no migrant labor that was illegal and harmful to these humans, the slavery essentially, happening in our supply chain. So instead of just announcing that we had come to a beautiful resolution of this problem, instead, this is a headline that we actually placed: all your clothes are made with exploited labor. And that really elevates your communications to help the customer and the reader understand the true problem and the true issue that we're all involved in. It's a constant struggle, and that level of transparency has worked really well for us. This might not be the type of headline you would instantly think would play well, but this was one of the most successful single placements that we had over the past year. Again, another example of elevating the discussion. When we found out that there was live plucking and force feeding happening in our down supply chain, several years ago we were called out by an NGO. We, again, dumped a lot of resources and a lot of communications efforts to be transparent about what we knew and what we didn't know at that time. Just this past year, we finally fully implemented the traceable down standard. And instead of, again, just announcing that we had come to this gorgeous resolution and we now had no force feeding and no live plucking in our supply chain, we instead flipped the conversation on its head to try to raise awareness about the sourcing issues involved in conventional down. We created an animation that was an animation, so it was pretty accessible, but it did contain some pretty graphic imagery of live plucking and force feeding. It had this Grim Reaper character torturing the goose, essentially. And in that way, again, just like with the migrant worker standard, we were able to put into a larger context our work. So we're remaining humble and transparent and also getting our point across about the work that we've done and why our products are better than our competitors. Communicating your values through engagement. Some of you may know about our ad in 2011, "Don't Buy This Jacket." We put out a full-page ad in the New York Times asking people not to buy a Patagonia jacket, and then using the rest of the ad to communicate the fact that consumption has a serious environmental cost. And we are asking people, it's a long-held value of Yvonne and our company, to think differently about how they consume, to think differently before they buy something new. Ask themselves, do they really need it? Is there a way to repair or reuse something that they have to keep it in use longer, to avoid the need to produce something more? Yes, when you need something new, we hope you buy it from Patagonia. Of course, we've got incredible products and they last a lifetime. But the idea was that we wanted to raise awareness about this need to think about consumption differently. And that has evolved into our Wornware program. Our Wornware program is an engagement platform. So this past spring, we went out into the world with this truck, Wornware truck made of recycled wine barrels, I believe, giving people tools to repair and reuse their stuff in order to empower them to uphold their end of the bargain. We make the very best clothing for the outdoors, and they, in turn, use the tools that we provide to keep their stuff in use as long as possible, thereby reducing the overall consumption and the environmental impact associated with producing their goods. So engaging your customers to communicate your values is really powerful. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We were recently attacked by PETA with a video showing some pretty egregious animal welfare issues in our wool supply chain. We'd been working with a wool supplier in Argentina. There was a great environmental program associated with grasslands restoration and the sheep grazing there. But we hadn't, frankly, looked deep enough into how animals were treated as they were being slaughtered for meat. We were buying wool, not meat, and we just hadn't looked deep enough. So instead of, a lot of companies, a lot of PR professionals, don't want to face, negative coverage and try to sweep something like this under the rug, by either obfuscating the media or, kind of playing a block and tackle game. Instead, we really, put it all out there and communicated, loudly and quickly what we knew and what we didn't know, and were as honest as possible with our audiences and with the press. And that ended up playing quite well. We did end up separating from that supply chain. We decided to take a step back and try to find a new solution. We're actually in the process of working with a reporter who's embedded in our entire process to just try to be, again, as transparent as possible in our efforts to find a new supply chain. It's very difficult to grapple with what we're okay with and what we're not okay with when it comes to animal welfare, while also making sure that we're sourcing the most high quality wool possible. Being honest, being transparent is something that customers in this day and age really value. They want to know that there's a human being behind the statement, behind the video, whatever it might be. And this is one that really ended up working for us, and it's going to be a work in progress moving forward. And then again, make news. I really think that product PR is important. Obviously, you have to do it. It takes a lot of resources, but PR effort is really best used to communicate things other than just the latest product innovations. If you've got truly groundbreaking product, something that's honestly new in the world, that definitely deserves your PR attention. But otherwise, find the ways that your company is, or your client, or your business and organization are truly doing something in the world that is novel. And oftentimes, if you have a mission, if you've developed that, and really are embedding it in your business decisions, you're going to find that, in fact, you are able to pull out stories that show why your business is unique and different above and beyond simply the products that you make. So example, Patagonia in 1996 shifted to use 100% organic cotton in all of our cotton garments. It was a world first. There was really no organic cotton market that existed. We essentially created it from scratch. So this was a very powerful, newsworthy moment that we promoted that really had little to do with our actual products and a lot to do with who we are as a company. Again, we closed our stores last year when the big New York City climate march happened so that our employees could go marching, and we used that as an opportunity to encourage other people to go marching as well. We took out another full-page ad in the New York Times and closed our stores. And I think if we would have simply made a statement without actually having that action of closing our stores associated with it, I'm sure all of you saw REI's recent announcement about their store closures on Black Friday. Similar approach. I mean, they really took their value and took action associated with that value and communicated effectively to customers, and good on them. And we've done similar things in the past, and I think it really puts an emphasis on the skin that you have in the game and elevates your news coverage significantly. And taking action, doing something, it's one thing if you're doing it. It's another thing if you're using your voice to inspire other people to take action. Some of you may have seen our feature-length documentary, Damnation. Jumbo Wild is the most recent iteration of this effort over the past few years that we've had to use film as a catalyst for environmental action. We poured $500,000 into Damnation. That's a pretty bold statement on behalf of our values. A lot of people question, why is a clothing company making a feature-length film about dam removal? It's a legitimate question, and it's a question I encourage the news media to ask because it led to a lot of really great coverage. And we allowed them to explore why is that? What is it about our company that makes us want to pour that kind of resources into communicating the negative impacts of dams, and then inspiring people to take action to change the paradigm. And forget everything else. If it's not newsworthy, it's not worth your time. And that's a message that you'll have to repeat over and over again to your product teams, to marketers, to your CEO. But when you're working with the media, you really have to only prioritize those things that are truly have that newsworthy value. And that can be tough. But I can't tell you how many times at Patagonia I am telling our marketing team or telling our product and merchandising teams that that's a wonderful campaign for our direct-to-consumer channels, but it's not going to be a PR priority for the season simply because there's nothing new, nothing groundbreaking. Instead, I'll go out, dig into the company, and look for other things that are worth promoting through PR channels, because in order to keep that credibility with journalists that you work with, you can't be trying to sell them things that are not worth writing about. Like this, Bieber cuts his hair. Just an example of something that's really not. I guess HLN did cover this, but HLN's probably not your primary target. But if what you're trying to promote is essentially the equivalent of Bieber cuts his hair, you should take it off the table and think differently about how you're prioritizing the stories you're bringing to the press. Yeah, and forget talking points. The thing that I say in media trainings more than anything else is just draw on your own story. Everyone who works at an organization has a personal reason for being there and a personal reason for feeling passionate about their work. And that is definitely true at organizations that are mission driven, and another good reason to make sure that your organizations are thinking about approaching their business in that way. This really, as a PR professional, this line of thinking really takes a lot of the pressure off, because you're not forcing people to memorize a message or regurgitate talking points that might sound rote. Instead, you're allowing people just to be transparent, be out there about what's good and bad in their life, what's good and bad in their work life, and through that you get a lot more authentic types of coverage, and you're able to pitch stories that journalists are really interested in writing. So those are just some principles, and I wanted to share them, and now have some. I guess we just have like 5 or 10 minutes for questions. So. Let's start in the back, and then I'll come here. Yeah, the question was, why are we pursuing coverage outside the local area? Why aren't we targeting local media? I have to quibble with you. I actually think we've been covered pretty well in the VC Reporter and the Ventura County Star over the past couple years. It's not our top priority, that's true. But we've had profiles of our relatively new CEO, Rose Marcario, in both those outlets. We've had pretty significant print and online coverage in the LA Times, most recently around our new denim line and the Wornwear tour that I mentioned. The denim line is newsworthy because it's an entirely new way of making denim that uses significantly less water, creates a lot less waste, and results in a lot less CO2 emissions. And it's something we're open sourcing for the entire industry to use. But to your point, it's we are looking for higher value targets. It's true. We're a global company, so we can frankly choose to engage with local media, or we can choose to engage with the national outlet. It takes the same amount of time, but we're getting a lot more eyeballs on it. And also in the age of social media, I have deep respect for local media. I've been a local reporter myself in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I still think there's a huge huge need for great local coverage. At the same time, in the world of social media, a story in the New York Times will be shared just as much or more among local residents here to communicate who we are and what we're up to than a local story. So, it's a resource issue more than anything. But we have, I think, tried to engage with the local outlets that cover our community. The recent paddle out to the oil platform in efforts to pass legislation to increase oil spill response efforts and prevent oil spills was another example of something that was covered pretty significantly in the Santa Barbara media. So, it's definitely a balancing act. Did you have a question? The question was, how do we communicate with employees to maintain consistency about how they're feeling about what we're doing in addition to how we're being perceived externally. Yeah, internal communications is a really important part of my job. We really try to maintain a consistent flow of communications. Since I've come on, we've developed a 4-pronged approach to internal communications. We've got a daily blog on our intranet that allows any employee in the company can submit and have something on the daily blog, within 24 hours. So that's just a way to share stories. People share, photos from their weekend, camping weekend or climbing weekend, whatever they were doing. It's also a place for more business style updates. Anything goes on there. We've got a quarterly newsletter that we send out to employees. It's like a magazine style. It's produced, almost in the same way as our catalog, but it's digital only. And that goes out to all employees every quarter, and there's a theme around it. But it often communicates the kinds of initiatives that we're promoting externally as well. We've got quarterly town halls with our CEO and our leadership team. And then we've got a director of Patagonia philosophy who actually reports to me, and he's going around the entire world engaging directly with small teams of employees about our company's history, about our values, and about the philosophy of Yvonne and our founding team. So those are kind of the main strategies. But when we launch something like Jumbo Wild, for example, which I encourage you to watch it. It'll be on Vimeo and iTunes in early December, and it's also touring around the country right now. But when we launch something like that, a big initiative, a feature-length film with an entire campaign associated with it and a call to action, we always communicate, at the very same time with our employees, or a couple of days ahead of time, to make sure that everyone, from headquarters employees down to retail associates, global regions, all feel in the loop about what we're up to. Yep, Jenny. So the question was, how do you manage PR at a global level, as a single person sitting in Ventura, California? It's tough. I have a lot of direct involvement in the kinds of outlets like you mentioned. The core outdoor endemics like Backpacker, Outside Magazine, as well as the New York Times, Today Show, national broad-based media. When it comes to managing the global regions, we've got PR people in each of our global regions in Europe, in Korea, and Japan, Australia, Latin America. And when I'm working with them, it's a lot less about directly engaging with journalists and media. It's a lot more about communicating these types of principles and helping them develop, either take the stories that we're promoting to U.S. or North America media and tailor them to fit the media landscape that's really unique in their regions. Or it's about helping them understand these principles so they can draw on their own employees, their own teams, and their own activities to create more local or regional specific media coverage. So it's definitely difficult. It's a great challenge, but we've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years, and I think as a company that's really relied on media coverage to drive its brand awareness forward over 40 years, that's a big priority right here. Plan. Like every communications plan, it's not updated as much as you'd like it to be. But it's less of a plan or a set of tactics and more of a strategy. So, I really do want to always have my objectives in mind, and I always want to make sure that I'm doing a gut check every single day, that what I'm spending my time, what my team's time is being spent on, is actually fitting along that strategy that I've set out for how I'm going to get to my objectives. So that's, to answer your question, yes, I do have a written communications plan. I can't share it. I'm sorry. But I can tell you that we are interested in brand coverage that is transparent. So we want the good and the bad. I mean, the strategy is basically what I shared with you today. Stories that I don't know what a good example of a story that wouldn't fit that strategy would be, but we don't often necessarily target the biggest outlets. We target outlets where we know will be covered with depth, where we will encounter a readership that is interested in digging deep into the values of our company and the issues that we're trying to raise awareness on or that we're involved in. If the broader media is interested in kind of piggybacking off that type of coverage, that's wonderful. But I'm not trying to pitch the Today Show, every day, for example. Your second question was, how do we measure? Yeah, measurement these days is tough. I rely on our social media team actually for the most interesting and relevant measurement for PR success. We look at engagement digitally around the types of stories that we're putting out there, how many shares, how much engagement is happening. And we still look at impressions. I don't look at value really at all these days. I think it's impossible to measure earned media value in the digital age, and so I've basically just eliminated that from our reporting. I think instead, internally, I try to share my perception of how well we're doing, because I'm taken seriously as someone who understands the media landscape and knows inherently the type of impact that certain types of stories or certain types of initiatives have caused in the press. And I think that's honestly the best outcome, is if you can gain the trust of your leadership to just be honest and forthright about what's working and what's not. That's the best kind of reporting in the digital age. You can pay a lot of money for some advanced analytics. If you have a ton of cash, it's probably worth doing. But if you don't, I think you got to work with what you've got. So something we work with as well. Yeah, in the back, Minnesotan.
Yeah, well, the first question is, what high school did you go to?
I went to Mounds Park Academy. Yeah, I don't know if you guys listened to This American Life, but they had a segment this past week or the week before where they called up some branding, advertising, and marketing professionals and asked them what should Volkswagen do. And the best answer I saw from that was that they should crowdsource a solution. So they should go out into the world and ask people who have been impacted by the crisis and impacted by years of dishonesty from Volkswagen, and something that's near and dear to them, what should this company do to repair trust? And I thought that was a really interesting suggestion, and something that would likely result in a relevant solution that people had inherently bought into through the process by which they would collect those suggestions and vote them up or vote them down, kind of Reddit style. So I liked that, but they're in a tough situation, and it's hard to see them recovering meaningfully anytime soon. Other questions? Yeah, right here. Well, I think social responsibility has become a lot more important in the digital age. I mean, I can't emphasize how much social media has really changed things. We are now relating to companies based on a lot more factors than the products that they sell. We have access to information, through, places like Glassdoor, through, what's that site where you're able to ask people questions about what it's like to do something. And there's just so many outlets where you can get information about what it's like to work at a company and how they treat their people, and not just at a headquarters or retail perspective, but up and down their supply chain. So I put a lot of work into inviting the media to come and experience our culture, and I think that has proved really successful for us because it helps people understand our values. I think how you treat your people, is probably the first indicator of your values. Just in the same way as you might judge a human on how they treat their friends and family. So I think creating that type of parallel can be very powerful. And certainly if you're hearing about companies that don't treat their workforce very well, you saw, I won't comment on Amazon, but you saw that story in the New York Times. It was pretty devastating for them. And they were very concerned, rightfully, I think, about the customer perception of how that kind of news would be perceived. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Let's thank Adam once again.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.